Good day, everyone. Thank you for attending today's Nuix Discover Power User webinar. Before we dive into the presentation, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items with you in relation to Bright Talk. It's recommended that you view the webinar in full screen mode. You can click on the right side of the presentation screen in order to enlarge. If you have any question at any time during the webinar, please use the Ask a Question tab that's located below the player. I will be monitoring questions as we go, and I'll look for good opportunities to ask them of our guest presenter today. At the end of the webinar, please take a moment to rate this presentation and provide feedback using the Rate This tab below the player. And then finally, the recorded version of this presentation is going to be available using the same URL that you used to get to the webinar today. And it'll be available shortly after the conclusion of today's webinar. So feel free to share it and come back for repeat viewings if you find it valuable. So with that, let's begin today's webinar. Welcome, everyone. My name is J.R. Jenkins. I'm part of the marketing team here at Nuix, and today's presentation is dedicated to visual analytics and how they can help during eDiscovery investigations. I'm going to start off with giving everybody a real quick overview of investigations. I think most in the audience are eDiscovery veterans and familiar with some of the key parts of an investigation in relation to eDiscovery matters, but I'll still hit the highlights. And then I'm really happy to have David Zimmerman join me. David is a senior product owner on the Nuix Discover team, longtime eDiscovery veteran, and David's going to take us through a demo of some of the parts of Nuix Discover that have a really profound impact on investigations, specifically the analysis of social networks, communication networks, etc., and their connection to the rest of the parts of the interface, or the rest of the parts of the metadata and documents that are part of Nuix Discover review mode. We'll talk a little bit about referential integrity, which is a favorite word of ours, word of the day, and we'll have time for Q&A. Advance my slide here. So this is, again, a long series of webinars that are dedicated to Nuix Discover, which is all about finding truth in a digital world. You can see some of the things that we value about the platform is the notion of the speed, efficiency, control, and insight that we can deliver when it comes to document review, investigations, etc., and available in flexible deployment options from cloud to on-premise and all stops in between. So, answering the 5W and the H investigation, everybody's familiar with this. Today we're going to focus on that notion of the first one, which is the who is it about. Obviously, several types of investigations out there if you're talking about law enforcement, forensic type investigations, but when you get into eDiscovery, you usually have a notion of a set of data that is ready to be interrogated from these different vantage points, and how well you're able to do that, parse the who, parse the what, when, etc. The better the quality of your review will be. I think the thing that's pretty cool about Nuix Discover is that we provide entry points into your investigation based on all of these things. So if you, as a lead reviewer, as a subject matter expert, an investigator trying to find wrongdoing, if you know one bit of this 5W and H, you can start your investigation there. So, and really kind of peel back the onion and find the other W's and H's as you go. Today we'll focus on that notion of who is it about, but the cool thing about Nuix Discover is that, and visual analytics I should say, is obviously it reduces costs and complexity of your review. The visualization, we've seen a lot of advancement in visualizations over the years, and they continue to be, look, their biggest power fundamentally is they help human beings who are prone to want to think in patterns. It's a long-time evolutionary benefit of our brains to look for ways to make sense of large volumes of information into discrete patterns. It lowers the cognitive load. It lowers the amount of calories that the brain uses. There's some really cool physiological reasons why people are drawn to visuals. It helps us survive, and certainly those who are dealing with large data volumes, survivability sometimes is right at the top of their checklist. So it reduces the cost and complexity of review. It helps you identify relevant and hot documents quickly. And then ideally, it's impacting your review strategy, the right people, the right workflows, the right locations, the right times, etc. Another great thing about visual analytics and Discover, and I mention this because we often have people joining us from around the globe and in dual language environments, such as our friends in Ottawa, can be used on foreign languages, which is an important part of most eDiscovery today, certainly for large corporations and large law firms who are serving corporations who have global businesses. And really, the thing that I think is really important for everybody to understand is Visual analytics are appropriate for any sized project. There is no magical threshold. There is no need to hold them back until something massive comes along. Visualizations of even 100 documents can help you find things that would defy normal inspection of them in a linear kind of email client window approach. So lots of benefits coming along with the notion of visual analytics, and they can be used obviously in litigations, second requests, and then for today's purposes, investigations. And the last thing I'll say is that, look, we think about analytics in everyday perspective, which is why when you think about EDRM from processing to production, which most of the people working in eDiscovery think of, we have got something for you in every one of those stages when it comes to analytics. And so today when we think about this notion of early data or early case assessment and trying to identify timelines and social networks, I've bolded social network analysis today because David will spend time with us walking through that. But analytics are basically a step of, are part of every step inside of Nuix Discover. And as Bill Adams, who's the head of Nuix Discover, likes to say, analytics aren't part of the platform. With Nuix Discover, they are the platform. And I agree with him. Okay, so with that said, I want to introduce David Zimmerman. David is a Nuix Discover product owner. He's based in Seattle, like I am, though working from home like I am, and like I'm sure most of you are. David's got a long history in eDiscovery. We were talking about it this morning, more than 18 years, which really almost takes us back to the center ring of that tree. David's had been on the front lines in a lot of different environments, from LexisNexis to DTI to FTI with me, and now at Nuix. So brings a lot of experience, a lot of time spent with our clients, dealing with problems, and I'm happy to introduce him today. And David, I'm going to hand it over to you now to lead us into a demo of Nuix Discover and some of our visual analytics.
Sounds good. Thanks, JR. Thanks for having me, and thanks for joining, everyone. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. And JR, if you can just tell me if you can see this coming up.
Yeah, I'll confirm for you as soon as I see it. And I can see it, David.
All right, good deal. So we'll start with the communication network here today. And right now, I'll just show you a little bit of the layout here. I have a set of 5,000 emails that I've returned in my results set here. I got my browse pane hidden over on the left. I got my list showing here. And I've got my timeline hidden up at the top. We'll take a look at that a little bit later. And then this is the main thing that we'd like to take a look at. First is the communication network diagram. I think go ahead and shrink the list a little bit, but I'll keep it open because we'll see when we select documents that we'll see them show up there. The communication network will show you a left-hand side, which is a grid that shows you all participants on the emails in my results set. So you can see there's 1,500 participants on these emails. By default, it's sorting by date sent, or sorry, the number of emails sent, and it shows you also the number of emails received by each individual. And by default, it's showing you the top 5 people on the network visualization. That top 5 is just, there's a case option for that if you'd like to adjust that default setting. But it's showing us the top 5 participants on the emails based on their sent count. In the visualization, we see a node for each of the people that are shown on the visualization, and I can hover over and I can see the same thing, count of sent and received emails. So there's a pie chart on each of the nodes representing kind of a visual indicator of how many emails they're sending compared to how many they're receiving. We can see that Vincent here sends a lot fewer emails than he receives. And I can hover over the lines as well, and that'll show me the count of emails going back and forth between these two individuals. The loops are indicating that the emails are being sent to the same person. So we can see Vince here sends emails to himself or CCs himself quite often. And then I don't have to stick with just the top 5. I can use tools over here by clicking the show node, and that will add or hide nodes to my network diagram. So I can add several nodes. I have a button here where I can redraw at any time, and that'll reposition the diagram within my window space, lays it out pretty well. You can also grab the nodes and move them around, lay things out however you'd like. And I can zoom in and out using the slider I can also point and use the mouse to zoom in and out. That's a little bit more accurate and precise where you're zooming into there. I could hide the grid if I want to see my visualization enlarged. I can hide all of my nodes, and I can start fresh and just choose what I want to see. Go back to where I was. And most importantly, when I make selections, it's going to select those documents. So here I've made a selection by clicking on a node, Kevin Moore here. You can see the node itself is highlighted in blue, indicating that it's selected. Over on the grid, the name Kevin Moore is also highlighted in blue, indicating that I've selected all sent and received emails for that individual. On the left, you can see in my list, there's documents now selected, and I've got the 127 emails selected in my working list. So I can pop over to the working list and review these documents right away there. Just jumping over to that working list. I can also click a line in between two individuals, and that'll select their emails going between those two people. And then as I'm making selections, you can see also in the grid here that there's participants indicated, or this little indicator is showing which participants are also on those emails that might not be already shown on my visualization. The other thing I can do is make selections within the grid itself. I can click Kevin's name to select all of his emails. I can click just someone's sent items or just their received items. I can also control click to make multiple selections. All of those docs are now added to my working list.
David, a question just came in, and I know you did say this, but that notion of does the loop around some of the circles mean the person is sending emails to themselves? And yes, that's the case, right?
That is correct. Yeah, we can see this person just sent one email to themselves. Vince here, he's sent over 1,000.
And look, I think in some ways, I think everybody recognizes that one person in their organization who always CCs themselves, but there's also that special use case, I think, when we've all sent that big email maybe to someone, our boss, or maybe our boss's boss, where we want to make sure that this thing went through, so we CC ourselves. So in some ways, it can be an indicator of an email that may be more important than the general stack. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, that's actually a good piece of information. Let's take a look again here at this column showing which participants are on my selected emails. So I've chosen the sent emails for Kevin. We can see when he's sending emails, he's actually sending them to all these other participants. If I look at Molly, so there's 33 people we can see at the top there. If I click on Molly's sent items, we can see there's 10 participants on her emails. I can also use this button right here on the toolbar to show all of those nodes, participant nodes for the selected communications, and then redraw my map so I can see everyone that Molly is in communication with for her sent emails.
So another question, two questions came in, David, and does received include CC and BCC?
Yes, it does, and actually that's a perfect segue because I was just about to show the filter here. So right now, this visualization and the grid here is representing all emails that are, sent from these individuals, but also all of the recipients, so the CC and BCC recipients. I can use this filter to drill in and focus in on just, say, CC or BCC, for example. So if I exclude my two, now notice the numbers, the counts will decrease quite a bit. Yeah. And now, as I hover over a node, you'll see the same thing, the counts have decreased. So these are just, the sent emails are those emails that are sent where there is a CC or a BCC on that email. And then the senders, again, the recipients of those emails are just seeing the people who are CC or BCC on the visualization. You saw some people disappear from my visualization here. So if I filter further and just go to BCC, I actually don't have anyone in my result set. I do have a different review set here that I think has some BCCs, yes. And we can see here's Sally, and she sent 2 emails, and Patty and Greg are recipients. They are both BCC recipients. So if I select Sally's emails, we can see those are the recipients. And if I pop over to my list, sometimes I like to include in my list when I'm working with the network diagram is to include the recipients, the 2 CC/BCC, so I can see exactly the data sort of behind the scenes. Helps you make sense of the visualization sometimes. So if I flip to my working list, I can see those 2 emails from Sally, and then there's other recipients, but the only ones I'm showing on my visualization are Greg and Patty, who are the BCCs.
And obviously, from an investigation standpoint, this is critical stuff when you think about who knew what when, and if not who knew, certainly who had access to certain information at a certain time frame. So oftentimes you're trying to find out if custodian A or B was party to maybe some key information, whether it be a trading thing or some kind of impropriety claim, etc. Those BCC trails can really help you kind of expand what would be the body of people you should be looking at more closely.
That's exactly right. Let's jump back to, say, Kevin here and see his sent emails, and let's go ahead and put all of his nodes back on the map. So this is everyone that Kevin is communicating with. So the network diagram really shows you who is communicating with whom. So we might also want to know when are they communicating. So if I pop over my timeline, I can see just that. So I can see for the sent emails that I've selected from Kevin Moore, this is the time frame of those emails when they're being sent. And by the same token, I can deselect anytime by clicking just the black space. If I select something on the time frame, then it's going to select those documents again on the timeline, and it's going to tell me who are the participants that are on communications during that time. I could even select a range time, and then we'll change my diagram. So there's more that are showing as participants that are not on my visualization, but I could zoom into those at any time here by clicking this button. So it's really nice with that referential integrity that JR mentioned. With this working list, it drives all of the other panes in your workspace. So it's all tied together, which is really powerful. So that's when they were communicating. Let's look into what they're talking about. So let me jump back to let's take a look at Ben and Kevin here. And we'll select the email communications between those 2 individuals. So to find out what they're talking about, we have a couple of tools. Let me pop open the Concept Cloud real quick. Take a quick look at that. I just have this other workspace with the Concept Cloud on the right. I still have my 85 documents I've selected between Vince and Kevin. And if I hide my communication diagram, I have the Concept Cloud over here. This is, you might be familiar with the Concept Cloud that's on the home screen, the home area of Discover. This is in the workspace pane, it's different in 2 key ways. So first off, there's a working list on this one. So I could jump over. These are concepts right now showing for all of the documents in my search results. But I could pop over and I could see just the working list. So for the 85 documents that I've selected, those communications between Kevin and Vince, these are the concepts coming from just those documents. The other key differentiator from this Concept Cloud to the one on the home screen is this uses a different algorithm to determine what concepts to display. It's using an algorithm called TF-IDF. It's term frequency inverse document frequency, and essentially it's giving higher weighting to terms that are important to individual documents and less common, like less weighting to concepts that are common throughout the whole population. So it's trying to kind of focus in on those important concepts that are not frequently occurring in your population to try to bring out other information that you might not find otherwise. So I want you to know this is here and it's available. If you use it, we'd love to have feedback. We're considering changing this to work more like the concept cloud on the home screen, where it would show you the size of concepts represents the number of documents associated with that concept. For consistency, and we've had some feedback that people like that better, but we'd love to hear your feedback if you use this feature. The other thing that I can do, let me jump back, is go to my working list. The other thing to see concepts is I can open a link workspace and I can use my concept map. Mapper is super powerful. You've probably seen this before. What this does is it gives me a visual representation of the concepts across my document search results. All the concepts, all of the documents are represented here on this map as a dot, essentially. So what I'm seeing here are clusters of documents, and around the ring, these are the concepts, the common concept for those clusters of documents. And documents with a common concept are included together on a spine. So this whole spine of documents is about research. This one is about promotion. And if I zoom in, I can see individual dots. These are the individual documents in my results list. And the highlighted ones are the ones that are selected in my 85. So I could navigate around this map and I can see these documents are about research group, interview schedule. You can see that this is a spine about interviewing. I could also cluster just on my selected, so I could drill into those 85 and focus in on those, and I can see, all right, here are my selected documents. Now what are the concepts here? So these are the communications between Kevin and Ben. So conference rooms, flat screens, new extensions, this name, so it looks like move, perhaps this is more about office moves or something like that. So you can get an idea of what these documents are about, and then the real powerful thing is you can just quickly bulk code, if you need to, all of these documents in one step. Code them as not relevant or relevant, depending on what you're looking for. That's a quick way to find out what's being communicated about, starting with the communication diagram and jumping over to the map.
Yeah, so a couple things I think are pretty cool there, David, that I would like to emphasize for the group is we started out with, you started out with that notion of the who's. You've got a communication network of a few key custodians, and in that starting case was a big network. I love the bi-directional notion of our timeline, meaning I can select a couple custodians and see this spread of communication across months and years. But I love because oftentimes the wrongdoing might show up in a certain time frame. So by being able to isolate on timeline, isolate the custodian, the specific communication, and then look over at the concept clouds, I mean, within a couple of clicks, you're looking at basically the top terms and key words that are being used by key custodians at the time frame that the wrongdoing is suspected to happen. You're really eliminating guesswork from investigations. I mean, that's the bottom line here.
Yeah, it's really quick, it's powerful, and gets you there quickly. It's really nice. Yeah. Let's pop over to the domain network and take a look at that real quick here. Yeah, I have a different set that I want to pull up for this. So this is the same thing as the communication network that we just looked at, but this is based on the other side, the right side of the email, so the email domain. So these are the organizations that are communicating with one another. This result set is also Vince Kaminsky, and I guess he did a lot of recruiting for Enron at the time. So you can see a lot of these domains are universities. So I can select some other nodes here to show on my network. Redraw the map. I can see he's communicating with these other universities. Vince also uses the AOL account quite often. I can see if I click on Baylor, communicating from his AOL account and his Enron account. If I click on Stanford, you see Baylor's not involved in these communications. It's just the one university. Right, for example. So this is a great way sometimes to start at this higher level, so you can see the organizations, which organizations are communicating with each other. But then you might want to go from here and drill back into the communication network, so you can see, all right, who are the people that are actually communicating between these organizations. So I can go back to my other workspace, the social network. I still have those same 67 Rice emails selected. And sure enough, you can see here's Vince in his AOL account as a participant on those selected documents. There's also 65 people on those communications. So I can jump right to those 65, show them on my diagram, and I can see all of these people are on those communications with Rice University. So if I click on 108 from Vince, I can zoom in on those. And I can see here he is communicating with 2 people from Rice EDU through his AOL account, and also linked to his email, his Enron account, essentially. Or 2 different Enron accounts, it looks like. And that's a good point to actually mention. One of the other things that we're working on that is a project that's in the works is a names normalization project. And what that will do is it will consolidate these different variations of a person's name that are email aliases, essentially, consolidate them into a single identity for each individual. And then what we'll be doing is adding a toggle to the communication network diagram that you can switch from the person, the people view, so the variations of the person names, to the identity view. And it will consolidate all of these events into one node, essentially, for the network diagram to really clean this up. We would still see for these emails he'd be having a loop where he's emailing himself, essentially, even though he's using different email addresses to do that. And that's everything that I have to show you today. Do you have any questions out there? Hopefully that gives you some food for thought and some tools to use.
Yeah, I'll ask the audience if they've got any questions. You obviously can drop them into the question bar now. A few have come in. I think we've actually managed to answer most of the questions. There was one in Notion, and you may have shown this, David. It was once you select a node, can you further filter on the specific participant? So, for example, if I filter all the emails that one person sent to 3, can I also then just filter down on one of those 3? And I think you showed that specifically, but maybe you can show it again just for illustration points.
Yeah, so I mean, if I select, so I'm selecting Vince's sent emails here. Probably the easiest way to drill down into it is to go to the working list, and you can really see specifically those documents. This is going to show you all of the other people, the 37 individuals that are party to Vince's emails, and the quickest way to get there is to use this button to show all of those nodes for the selected communication and hide all the other nodes. And then I redraw the map, and that's what really zooms in and shows you just for what I've selected, these are the participants on there. And from here, I can also zoom in a little bit more, and maybe I don't want to look at all of them at once, but I want to see just this communication between Vince and this person, for example, or just a specific line. That will really reduce. So I'm only selecting 2 emails here, so that's how you kind of work your way around and throughout all of these 108 emails that he's sending, and really see like he's sending to this person, but also looks like those emails were also sent to these other 2 people.
Very good.
And another kind of trick to that is to show the filter on the participant column. So as I'm doing this, if I don't select anyone, there'll be no one here, but when I click a line, you'll see exactly those participants. So sometimes this list can be very long, and having that filter just show you in real time the participants that you've selected is helpful.
David, are there considerations in processing that Newix Discover users need to make when it comes to leveraging these types of tools? Are there any settings that they need to be conscious of, or is this kind of metadata just picked up during normal processing inside of our engine?
It's basically on by default. There is a case option setting that does the domain extraction from emails that needs to be on, but other than that, this is captured through normal processing.
Nice. Okay, well, David, that is, I appreciate your demo. I'm going to switch back to my slides now and take us out. If people have questions, you can continue to answer. Let me know, David, when you can see. Maybe you have to hand back the screen share. If you can stop sharing. Yeah.
You can pop back.
And let me know when I can see you.
Yep.
Okay, great. So the last thing I would say is going back to the early notion about deployment options. Remember that all of these great features are available both on-premise and inside of our Nuix Discover cloud. We are one of the few eDiscovery software providers out there that continue to develop on both platforms and have a real consistency between the feature sets. So that's available to you. We covered our Q&A. Our next Power User webinar is on May 26th. David Stromberg is going to join me, and he's going to be talking about custom apps and workflows, which is leveraging our data models and APIs, which is one of the more exciting additions to the Nuix Discover platform in the last couple of years is the kind of expansion of our APIs, which really opens up the application to a growing set of developers and partners now as part of our Nuix ecosystem. So be sure to join us on May 26th. Remember, you can go to our on-demand location on our nuix.com and view all of these recordings. And one of the things that we've just posted up here, now we've had about 6 weeks worth of our Nuix at Home. If you go to nuix.com and visit our at home, you'll find where we highlight the coming week's activities for you. So webinars and podcasts and videos, et cetera, a great way for you to stay close to the Nuix development team and look for ways to sharpen your own toolkit and skills when it comes to using our software. If you have an idea about something you'd like to see us do, whether it be podcast or webinar based, there's a survey on that page, a little form that you can fill out, drop it in, and we will absolutely put it near the front of the queue. We'd love to hear feedback on things that you would like to hear us discuss in more detail. And if anything, this work from home environment has, I think, opened all of us with a little bit of free time, maybe from the perspective where we weren't commuting, or we're no longer commuting, although at least in my own thing, I feel like I'm doing more dishes these days. But educational opportunities abound at Nuix at Home. We hope you'll join us there soon. So with that, I'll say thank you very much. Thank you again, David, for your presentation. We appreciated it, and I look forward to talking to all of you real soon.
Thanks, everyone.